Well, we welcome you to a post-Week 5 production of Power Rankings presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer.
Still going.
He is the old Zeuser. I am Matt Money Smith. It is the Zeusers' authored articulation of where each team has arrived following this past week's contest that provide all this material for us to mull over today. So, Zeuser, let's get to it. 1 through 8. Hey, what did you do this week? Nothing. Congratulations. You're the number one team.
That is
up there.
That's 2020 in a nutshell. I sat down to put it together, and the Green Bay Packers, despite having the bye week, had played a nearly flawless first 4 weeks of the season. So, yeah, I guess a little bit by default, but they earned it as well through their first 4 games.
Well, again, they arrived there because the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to get to this quite a bit through the show, were beaten by the Raiders, beaten at home by the Raiders, and to some degree, even the score might not suggest it. They weren't beat; they were beat kind of badly. But let's just kind of start as we get past the Packers bye week, number 1, 4-0, to those Chiefs. As you slowly remove your glasses, and I will as well.
I never know when to do it.
Why you kept them at number 2?
Because they're the Chiefs, the defending champs. It wasn't so long ago that we were singing their praises after they dismantled the Ravens on Monday Night Football in Baltimore. It was a bad week, though. There's no way around that. 2 things that jumped out to me, one on each side of the ball. Edwards-Helaire right there. They haven't quite unlocked him and their opportunities to make it work with the first-round pick running back. But the offense has been frazzled a little bit at times, and the pass rush was getting to Mahomes consistently, and it's a Raiders pass rush that hadn't done very much at all before this game. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, too many big plays. Derek Carr killing you for big plays. That doesn't happen a lot. So it was kind of a meltdown on both sides.
Hard to figure them out, right? And I had said when you moved him out of the number 1 spot, I'm not taking him out of number 1 until they lose a game because Mahomes always figures out a way to win. But I do think some things were uncovered here. One, I've never thought that offensive line was as good as they've been billed to be. I thought they were just consistent. It was the same players, and consistency does breed success at that particular position group. But you saw the Chargers get after them a couple weeks ago, and here you saw the Raiders, like you said, they did not have a great pass rush get after them. The secondary's always been a question mark, and Derek Carr, who's been great this season, was able to take advantage of them, especially give them a little bit of a dose of their own medicine, right? A lot of play action, setting up deep balls to Henry Ruggs. So this, I think, is a tougher division than people were giving it credit for. I know the Chargers are just 1-4, but the Raiders are tough. That is a tough offense to contend with that giant offensive line, that running game with Josh Jacobs. So I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing for them the rest of the way, but they do have the great equalizer in Patrick Mahomes, right?
Absolutely. And Kelechi Osemele, the guard who'd gotten off to a great start, he went out of this game with an injury, so the line gets weaker there. You could obviously see the Chiefs drop a 40 burger on the Bills this week, and then nobody thinks about this game again. But that's why I didn't want to punish them too much, because I still believe.
Well, speaking of dropping 40 burgers or near 40 burgers on the Buffalo Bills, let's get to a team. It's victory lap time.
They did
for Dan Hanzus and the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, man. I feel good about this one because I had kept the Tennessee Titans in the top 10 and hovering around the top 5 for the first month of the season, even when their point differential was about 6 in the first 3 wins of the season. Then they disappear in COVID madness, and then they returned as the kind of the best version of themselves. So I feel good that I didn't drop them down at any point, because I think what we saw on Tuesday night in Nashville, and yes, let's be clear here. I mean, there's a weird night, a weird situation with the Bills and the Titans. So you don't want to make too much of it. But we saw the best version of this team, the play action, their killer ability money in the red zone. They went 6 for 6 with 6 touchdowns in the red zone, and that's been going on really since Tannehill took over as the starter.
Well, and I do think, and we did this last week with Joe Brady, right? We're going to do it this week with Arthur Smith. And Arthur Smith, someone that people are familiar with because it is a unique offense, right? And last year was sort of the coronation of Smith because of the reclamation project that was Ryan Tannehill. But what he's done offensively, and when you're dealing with the trials, the tribulations that the Titans were this past couple weeks with COVID, you got to look at coaching. Would these guys be prepared? They're not practicing. Are they being kept up to speed? Is the game plan kind of where it needs to be going into a contest against a very good team? And the answer to that, I mean, they checked all of those boxes. So last week we gave you Joe Brady, probably going to be a head coach in 2021. This week we're going to give you Arthur Smith. He's probably going to be at least up for a head coaching gig, if not land one of those head coaching gigs based on what he's been able to do with a back that's not supposed to be relevant in 2020, just a hammer, and a quarterback that was essentially given away and turned into an all-pro and looking like one of the best players at that particular position.
Yeah, their attack is great, and Arthur Smith deserves a lot of credit. I do think, if he's trying to get a head coaching job next season, and I'm sure he does, maybe holding it back is the name Arthur Smith. Maybe we need to dress that up a little bit. Maybe make him like Buzz Smith, or I don't know, Arthur Smith. Maybe he doesn't get the gig.
Artie Smith. There we go. That'll work. We got it. We see we can talk through these things. We spitballed it for you, Artie. Good luck on the head coaching carousel next year. May you land one of those jobs. All right, that's enough of this. Enough of the give and take here, Dan, because we got to get to the centerpiece of the show right here in our first segment, and that is a particular individual that seems to win every single game he is asked to win.
I can't wait to see this drive right here. They already know what's going to happen. They already know what's going to happen. They already know. Let's go win this game. Let's go win this game.
It's a touchdown! It's a touchdown, Seahawks, and it's Metcalf!
Let's go! Let's go!
Holy catfish. What a comeback by the Seahawks.
Holy catfish. A couple tweets here to get us into this conversation. So the 5-0 Seahawks are not even in the top 4, and the Chiefs are second after losing to the Raiders. Such a joke. And he even tagged our sponsor, Energizer.
Oh, don't do that.
That is just diabolic.
Get your hand out of my pocket.
And now, how do you get the Seahawks or the Dangerfields? 5th behind 3-1 loss teams, beat every team with an injury depleted D, and the best quarterback wide receiver tandem in the game. That is a fair assessment. Probably the best quarterback wide receiver tandem in the game so far. Dan, I am not with you on this. I would have them much higher than number 6, so explain yourself.
Yes, Seahawks fans on fire. My mentions are exploding, as you can see. Here's the thing. By the way, number 6 is a nice place to be on the power rankings.
Undefeated at 6 is not a nice place to be.
5-0 is even better place to be if you're an NFL team. I still see some cracks here, and I understand if maybe you think I'm being stubborn, but I thought the Vikings outplayed the Seahawks for 55 out of 60 game minutes on Sunday night, which is not to take anything away from the Seahawks because their ability to close was magnificent, really. I mean, to go on a 96-yard drive and not even need your timeout until you're just, collecting your thoughts down near the goal line just shows you how special Russell Wilson is. But I still am not impressed by the defense, and it's not all just Jamal Adams missing because they were struggling when Adams was in the game. So I guess I wonder big picture what happens with the Seahawks when they face big-time teams down the stretch and in January. I have doubts about one side of the ball, but no doubts about what Russell Wilson and the other side is doing.
My assessment would simply be this. Did you ever think they were going to lose that game? Because I didn't. I when they were down and Pete Carroll gave that fiery halftime speech of, we haven't even got started yet, I was like, oh, I'm with them on that, as a matter of fact. And when they got the ball back, when they didn't get the first down. And I totally agree with Mike Zimmer, by the way, on that play. Absolutely go for it on 4th down. I don't even want to give it back to him up 8. Not interested in that. I would assume you're going to overtime if you do that anyway. So try to end it right there. And I think that's where I separate the Seahawks from some other teams. I'm not saying that I wouldn't feel like Aaron Rodgers wouldn't come back and win that game. Patrick Mahomes wouldn't come back and win that game. But then you start asking, would Lamar Jackson come back and win that game? Would Ben Roethlisberger come back and win that game? And that's where I would probably move them up a couple slots just because of that one individual.
I totally get your side of it, but I'm going to stand firm here that I need to see more from the other side of the ball before I say this is an elite, top of the level Super Bowl favorite team. I'm just not there yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's my power
suppose rankings. It's my hey, they are your power rankings, but I can be your foil here, Dan. And the foil says when you have the best player in the league, I'm going to go ahead and give him a bump, couple slots of a bump. Because
Patrick Mahomes is in Kansas City money.
Patrick Mahomes just got through a pick, got absolutely destroyed by a Raiders defensive line while Russell Wilson was cooking again.
Good foil.
Holy catfish. Holy catfish. Don't let a pair of picks spoil the celebration. The Browns are balling and winning games every which way, including loose. Stick around to see if Dan has Cleveland cracking his top 10. Back on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Here we go, second quadrant, 9 through 16. Let's start at the top. Dan Hanzus, the old Zeuser, the Cleveland Browns at number 9, and their beautiful 4-1 record, up 4 spots.
Yeah, I can't believe this is happening. The Cleveland Browns are in the top 10 of the power rankings, and they've earned it. You win 4 out of 5 games to start the season. You laid an egg against Baltimore in week 1, but they've done nothing but win since, and they got a nice effort from their defense against the Colts, making Phillip Rivers look old, and the offense looked great in the first half. Now, Money, I am going to temper this by I struggled a little bit to move them all the way into the top 10 because I see a little bit of storm clouds on the horizon here. With Mayfield specifically, I thought he played terribly in the second half. He also got beat up, suffered a rib injury, and I thought if Phillip Rivers plays halfway decently, the Colts could have stolen that game, but he didn't, right. So they didn't. But maybe the Browns, there's some storm clouds that people aren't seeing because they love this story.
Well, I've been a Browns backer all season, going back to preseason, and it's been a little bit of Stefanski and what I thought he'd be able to do with the offense and take away a lot of those Baker mistakes. Now, they're still there. He threw 2 picks last week. One of them was terrible. One of them was sort of terrible. I'll get to that probably, maybe a little preview of impact matchups to come. But the reason why Phillip Rivers threw those 2 picks was, one, he's Phillip Rivers, and he always throws untimely picks. He has his entire career, and he can't be doing that if the Colts are going to win games. But it's also because of the defense, right? This is a defense that leads the league in takeaways. They have 6 picks. They have 6 forced fumbles that they've recovered, and it all starts with Myles Garrett. And look, that was a brutal pick for pick 6.
Terrible pass.
But at the same time, it's created from that front. It is a great defensive line led by, if Aaron Donald would just let somebody have a shot at the Defensive Player of the Year, which he's not going to again, this is the guy that would get it. And Myles Garrett, you can see him there. I mean, he is a game wrecker, and it forced Rivers to climb the pocket, throw on the move, which he's not good at. So, yeah, they were brutal picks, but I believe in that defense. I believe in that running game and that reworked offensive line. But I think you hit it on the head when you said you just got to hope that Baker can – it's terrible to say, right? Stay out of the way. But I think that's – and it's hard to say that when you have Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry and Kareem Hunt, who is so adroit at catching passes out of the backfield. So he's got to be a part of it. But at the same time, you want him to get that aggressiveness, that swagger, while also coaching those disastrous decisions that have kind of followed him, out of his game. And I think that's something they can do because they have the defense that can create turnovers and short fields for him to take advantage of.
Yeah, I don't think.
All right, let's go.
I don't think there's a situation where you need to hide Baker Mayfield because in those first 2 quarters on Sunday, he looked great. But yes, he's had some mistakes. He got away with another pass that could have been an interception this game. He had a fumble. Yeah. He's just got to clean it up.
Yeah, and we'll get to a little bit more of that again, preview impact matchups a little bit later, so don't go anywhere. All right, let's get to the Bears, back end of the second quadrant. Number 16, a huge win, a defensively led victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, and I had been slow to kind of move them up in the power rankings, but once you win a big game in prime time against a team that I had in the top 10 in the Bucs entering week 5, you got to give them some respect. Nick Foles and that offense still not doing much for me, but they do have some of that 2018 vibe with their defense right now.
That's it. I mean, I think that's got to be the recipe, right? Is, as much as you feel good about Nick Foles perhaps providing some stability to the offense, it's going to be a defensive-led squad if they're going to make the playoffs. And 4-1 is a great place to be, but it's almost what you said about the Browns is how I feel about the Bears. I'm just not quite comfortable with them yet. Those games are tight. At the same time, Khalil Mack is an absolute game wrecker, game changer like Myles Garrett, and that's enough probably to carry him to 9, maybe even 10 wins in a playoff berth. Okay, so the Raiders, we already addressed that, rock the Chiefs. The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from the sea. Stay with us on Power Rankings and find out who our Raiders mystery guest will be.
pass. One-handed catch and a touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins. DJ Moore's got a convoy, and he'll social distance into the end zone. Thomas fumbles the ball. The Ravens have it. Touchdown, Ravens.
Got a man. He's in. Touchdown, Houston.
Rivers picked off by Ronnie Harrison. It's a pick six. Carr's going for the home run ball. Got a man open. It's Ruggs. Jackpot, baby. Russell, look out. He's going to fire inside. It's a touchdown, Seahawks, and it's Metcalf.
Oh, that is Chase Claypool for a Pittsburgh Steelers touchdown.
4 touchdowns.
Amazing.
Touchdown, Miami.
What a day for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Walks the dog, spikes the ball. He just said, Dak, that's for you.
Back on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Still going with the old Zeuser day in hand. Zeus, all right, Zeus, it is your opportunity to decide who will be joining us in this segment. It is mystery guest time, which means we split the two, we spin the wheel, you say stop, and somebody more accomplished than you or I appears.
Right. I don't really decide. It's fairly random, but let's go for it. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy, and stop.
And it's the College Football Hall of Famer, all-pro tackle, played in Super Bowl 37, color analyst on Compass Media's Las Vegas Raiders radio network. Lincoln Kennedy joins us. Lincoln, thanks for taking the time out. How are you?
I'm doing well, but I just have one question. Who decided to send these henchmen to my house to make me sit down and do this interview? Because I had no idea this was happening until now. But it's good to be with you. I just want to let you know your henchmen are now having lunch. They're well taken care of. But in the future, just give me a call. I'd rather be happy with it.
That's so kind of you to feed our henchmen.
And they're in Lincoln Kennedy's trophy room, which we always love.
Yeah, 6 of them. They sat me down. They said, here in front of the camera, we got something for you. So it's good to be with you guys.
Link, the Raiders are 3-2, a huge win. They knock off Pat Mahomes. Look, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have run the AFC West since he took over as a starter. They get their first win against him. What happened in that game? How were they able to do it?
They outplayed the Chiefs. It's not something that you've seen the world champions, the Chiefs, to happen. Matter of fact, they hadn't lost a game in Kansas City since November of last year. It doesn't happen too often. Really, the fact is that the offense outscored, put up enough points, and had good enough game to get the win. But mainly, they just outplayed the Chiefs on the other side.
Yeah, one thing that really jumped out to me was Henry Ruggs and what a difference he's making for that offense, Lincoln. This is a team that kind of needed that stretch the field guy, and that's why Gruden and Mayock targeted him, and we saw it in action in this game. Do you think that's something sustainable? Because I know Derek Carr has been criticized a lot for his conservative play. Do you think he'll continue to air it out if Ruggs is on the field and getting open?
One thing that we were able to take from last week's game against the Chiefs is the fact that Derek Carr and Henry Ruggs III have a great chemistry and rapport and a trust with one another. Derek had talked about it at various press conferences. Ruggs has mentioned it as well. He's been with Derek, as much as he possibly can to build that trust. So we're going to see a lot more of it. The Raiders were looking for a weapon that could take the top off of defense, sort of like the Chiefs have with Tyreek Hill and other guys. But more importantly, break some of the tendencies of going to Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow all the time. And they were able to do that last week against the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's interesting, Lincoln, because some people are wondering, was it dialed up? Was that scripted? And does John Gruden need to do more of that to maybe force the hand of Derek Carr? Because that's kind of been the question. Is he willing to kind of go past the intermediate and the short routes to take those shots downfield? Or do you think that's something that he's becoming more comfortable with, and we're going to start to see more of that in the flow of the offense from Derek Carr?
I think it's the latter, because what you have to take in consideration, Gruden's offense typically is ball control. Run the ball, set up play action, take small passes, matriculate down the field, and eventually hopefully score touchdowns. And this big play, this scenario against the Chiefs, I think the Raiders had 5 plays or more, 20 yards or more, which is not something that's really indicative. Now, Gruden will definitely take shots down the field in order to get those big plays, but it's not a big part of their offense. So I think you're going to see the latter part of your statement where they're going to do a little bit more, because now it seems most definitely the Chiefs were trying to concentrate on the short and intermediate routes, and they left a lot of things uncovered on the second level, the higher part, and that's what you saw last week in that game.
Lincoln, you were a star, obviously, in the trenches during your playing career, and the Raiders did not get much of a push or get after the quarterback much early in the season. And then out of nowhere, they pressured Patrick Mahomes 16 times in this game, which is the second most pressures Mahomes has ever faced in his career. One of those pressures led to kind of the game-clinching interception. Where did that come from?
Well, I think it's been desired all season. The fact is the Raiders were going to have to get a rush with 4. Look, they have 7 new starters, including first-year players on that defense. So they've got a lot of inexperience. And if you go back, to what is the strength of this Chiefs team, it's got to be their players, obviously their quarterback and their receivers and running backs, stuff like that. But one of the weaknesses is their offensive line. And after Kelechi Osemele went down, the left guard, and Reavers came in, it left some glaring holes. The Raiders were able to generate pressure with 3 and as little as 3 rushers, and sometimes only 4, which is good for them. They need that going forward. It's just, like I said in opening this interview, they just outplayed the Chiefs that day.
Lincoln, it's interesting. A lot of folks say after 4 weeks, you almost feel like, okay, that's sort of the preseason. You know what teams are through 5 games. Just kind of a few different questions in one. Do you know what this Raider team wants to be? Are they that Josh Jacobs ball control? Do you think they're we got to score 24 to 30 points to win a game because of the maybe defensive issues that they may have? Or are we still figuring this team out?
So answer question 1, no, we don't know who they are. Are they question 2, Josh Jacobs? Yes. Rely heavily on Josh Jacobs and a running back. 3, do they need to score 30 to 40 points? Yes. Answer that one. And the last question, no. The fact is that, I usually assess a team after the first month of football. But what's hard about this season, not only COVID related, but the fact that the injuries have played such a huge mark in a lot of teams, not just the Raiders. It wasn't until this last week that they actually got their starting right tackle, Trent Brown, back. And he only played 3 games. And why does somebody have to call me right when we're doing this?
Henchman.
We love that.
Amateur. I told you I wasn't prepared for this. Anyways, the fact is that this team relies heavily on Josh Jacobs. And last week we saw them kind of have to take a step away because Jacobs has been a little banged up. With all the injuries, now getting Ruggs back, we still don't know what the true identity of this team is. I'm going off of history, my history with John Gruden, how he is. So there's still a lot of things that need to be answered. But I think a lot of people are surprised that after 5 games, especially the way the schedule started out, that they are 3-2.
Yeah, they get a big victory through a tough stretch of the schedule. Bye week this week, but they get the Buccaneers right after that with Tom Brady. Lincoln, one of the best to do it. He does a great job on that radio call with Brent Musburger, a legendary radio team in Las Vegas for this inaugural season there in that city. 702, I believe, is the area code there. Maybe was dialing you up, Lincoln. We appreciate it. Good luck calling them games the rest of the year. We know you do a great job, and hopefully we'll see you back here on Power Rankings.
Well, I appreciate it. The money and Zeus. I'm going to go entertain your guys and make sure they get out of my house without taking me.
There we go.
Have them clean the gutters. Handle the pool.
That's a good idea.
There you go.
That's a good idea.
Exactly. There we go.
See you
on us.
All right. All right, here we go. Third quarter now of our power rankings, the third quadrant, 17 through 24. Chargers, even with that 1-4 record, ahead of the 3-2 Colts. Interesting one there after a couple Phillip Rivers picks has sounded the alarm bells in the 317. That's an area code that I certainly know.
Look at you.
Let's get to those 2 teams right there at 21 and 22. I believe at the start of the season, the preseason, the 49ers were number 2 as the reigning champs of the NFC, and I believe the Cowboys, I don't know if they were your pick for the Super Bowl, but I know you had high hopes for them, Dan. But here we are at 21 and 22 with each of those teams through 5 weeks. Let's start with the 49ers and how they find themselves outside of the top 20.
I mean, a disastrous game against the Dolphins in your building. Jimmy G was supposed to return to the lineup and bring stability to that offense. We talked about it on the show last week. Look out for the 49ers now with Garoppolo coming back and these guys getting healthy. Instead, Garoppolo was limping around and unable to drive the ball, and he was pulled at halftime, and his head coach is telling reporters after a 43-17 loss that he had to protect his quarterback. So what's going on in that quarterback room? That is some grim stuff. And then there's this money, and this really informed where I placed them as well. Look at their schedule coming up. They have home Rams, at Patriots, at Seahawks, versus Packers, at Saints, at Rams, home Bills. They could be irrelevant by Thanksgiving.
This was supposed to be kind of the start to some degree of the 49ers season, right? Deebo Samuel's out there. Raheem Mostert is out there. Jimmy Garoppolo is out there. They're playing against a team that a lot of folks think is still in that rebuilding phase here in 2020. And like you said, instead, they get run off their own field. Garoppolo looked terrible. And I was interested in the comments from Kyle Shanahan after, basically saying Jimmy's such a competitor, such a great teammate that he wanted to get back out there after the loss the week prior because of the, sort of failure of Nick Mullins. And maybe that was to his own detriment and to the 49ers' detriment. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do going forward. If it's protect Jimmy Garoppolo from himself or protect the team from Jimmy Garoppolo, because when you have a quarterback quandary, you got major issues, certainly. And with some issues on the offensive line injury-wise, some issues on defense injury-wise, like you said, with that schedule, we're going to find out in a hurry if the 49ers are going to be able to crack that top 15 and get back into the playoff picture, if they're just the next team in a long line of Super Bowl losers that can't figure it out the following season.
Got to win when you got the chance.
Yeah, to the Cowboys. And here they are at 22 after a narrow victory over the Giants.
Yeah, well, I called it disastrous what happened in Santa Clara. I don't know what to say what happened in Jerry World when Dak Prescott suffers a compound fracture of his ankle. He's obviously out for the season, already had the surgery. And it just puts a ceiling on the season. We talked about, I think I had them in the back end of the top 10 ahead of week 1 Monday. So I was high on them, and I thought they had a chance to make a real run this season. They're not a Super Bowl contender anymore, but doesn't mean they can't win this division, a very weak NFC East. And my thought with Andy Dalton was, I love that signing when it happened in the offseason, because I thought, wow, that is a great backup quarterback to have considering his experience. And then there is this other part of it, and we've talked about it on the Around the NFL podcast before. The great Chris Wessling cooked up this theory that it's the Dalton scale, and Andy Dalton is the prime meridian of NFL passers. He rises and falls completely based on the talent around him. Well, now he's got the best collection of skill players in the league, arguably. I think he plays well here.
What's overshadowed in the loss of Dak, understandably, it's a season-ending injury for one of the quarterbacks that was playing the best at his position and on pace to pass for over 6,000 yards. Not to mention all the contract situation in the offseason, that drama, and the fact that it's the Dallas Cowboys. But the defense was bad again. There's some splash plays there, but at the same time, they are not good. And a defense that a lot of people thought had a chance to be special, obviously beset by injuries. There's a feel-good story there of Aldon Smith if he can continue to make it all the way back. DeMarcus Lawrence is paid like a franchise defensive end pass rusher, but they have been terrible. 2 weeks ago was an absolute abject failure / embarrassment on that side of the ball. And against the Giants team that struggled with turnovers, struggled to score points, again, there is still, they leave you wanting. There is a lot left to be figured out there on the defensive side of the ball. And then we say all of that, and we just wipe it all away and say, yeah, but it's the NFC East and they look like the best team. So they'll probably win the division and make it into the playoffs.
Right.
And that's the story of the Cowboys.
The impending return of Leighton Vander Esch, maybe that has a huge lift for the defense. But what Dak Prescott brought to that team was never say die. And the defense was putting him in holes, and then Dak would bail them out. Andy Dalton, as much as I like him and think he'll do well here, I don't think he's that type of quarterback.
Again, must watch when it comes to the Cowboys moving forward. Must watch is coming up. Cynthia distributes her data on the NFC South. Her calculus will confirm which of the 3-2 teams, the Saints, Bucks, and Panthers, is the best of the bunch. Back at Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. It is our final quadrant, 25 through 32. You see a lot of in this particular group, but let's go all the way to the bottom, because big news out of Gang Green, Dan, is that the Jets they tried to trade, got no takers, understandably. I think he was owed $6 million for the remainder of the season for Le'Veon Bell, so they just flat out released him. Yeah,
and another kind of sad chapter in Jets free agent history. It's really been, with the exception of that one Fitzmagic season in 2015 when they went 10-6, still missed the playoffs. It's been just a horrendous run for this franchise that's already had its share of valleys. And the Bell situation with the Jamal Adams trade shows that the Jets, at least under Adam Gase, really don't know how to deal with high-profile players, and it's not a good look when you know you need to repopulate this roster. And I just wonder, going back all the way back with this team, the last time they were 0-5 and this bad was Rich Kotite, 1-15, 3-13 back-to-back years. And right after that, you saw Bill Parcells arrive on his white horse and save the team and take him to Super Bowl contender status. Who's going to save the Jets this time? I don't see someone on the horizon. Maybe there is, but that's why Jets fans have never been lower than they are right now. There's just so much to be worried about.
So one, I do think there'll be someone riding in on their white horse. It's not going to be a Bill Parcells type, I don't think, but someone will want this job. They got a ton of draft picks. I do think, based on kind of the selections he's made, Joe Douglas should at least, I think, have a little bit of support from the Jets fans, and then they do have a ton of picks. The interesting thing is going to be, you can't take stock of Sam Darnold because of how bad Adam Gase has been. So you don't know what you have there. But look, if they end up with the number 1 overall pick, you know who that's going to be.
And Darnold is out for another week. They announced it this week that Joe Flacco's starting week 6.
Yeah. And it's time for Power Moves, presented by Energizer. Still going. She has pored over the postulates. She has inspected every integer. Her logarithms lead all others. The premier predictive analyst in the business. It's Cynthia Freeland, back with math on a tight at the top NFC South. Cynthia, where would you like to start?
I mean, I want to start with the Saints because I still project them to win the division. I did a little math this week on what are the most predictive things given this explosion of offensive play that we've seen. And it's really the ability to complete deep passes, which kind of seems weird because we don't think of the Saints this season about this deep passing situation. But if you think about Michael Thomas's return alongside Emmanuel Sanders' just progression through each game, every single week, he's learning the offense, being way more open, giving Drew Brees the opportunity to move the defensive pieces around. And that's going to be a big difference maker, especially because their defense has kind of been underperforming, and you got to stop those deep passes too. And so that's where you're going to see the uptick for the Saints. The defense will get a bit better, and then that passing game will keep improving, and then that's how they win the division.
Can we cease with the hand-wringing about the decline of Drew Brees? I know maybe he's not the same guy that he was a few years ago, but I saw it several times in that game when they were facing 3rd and longs. Just like you're saying, Cynthia, he would hit Manny Sanders for 14 yards on a pretty nice dart over the middle of the field. I know he's not the same guy, but the idea that he's this major issue for them, it's overblown.
I don't think it's overblown might be the word, but it's certainly an issue, Dan, and you saw it in that game. There were a couple deep outs that he just could not deliver the ball. And all I would say to defensive lines after having just watched it, calling that Chargers-Saints game, just get your hands up. DJ pointed out something, Daniel Jeremiah, that I had not noticed before. He said Drew Brees is in the shotgun, and he's still taking a 7-step drop. And that's to build that cushion to create those anticipation throws. So he is great. He is great at finding holes and finding soft spots. He did that with Emmanuel Sanders that whole game. He saw busted coverage on Jared Cook for a touchdown on a 3rd and 15. But I do think there are still some issues there that you can adjust and scheme up when you're taking on the Saints. All right, who's next, Cynthia?
Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, are next. And they're kind of great at stopping these deep passes as well as creating them. The problem that they're experiencing or will potentially experience is that the big plays that they have given up on defense have been for huge gains that have been game-breaking gains. So in this one, the interesting thing to see is now as you get healthier again, Chris Godwin potentially back, all of their different pieces, you see like the Scotty Miller emergence. He's been their deep target. He has a lot of air yards per reception. He's been great for them on that. And then, of course, Mike Evans' ability to just create havoc on other defenses is really what puts them over the edge. However, my only pause here is that as they play teams like the one they're playing this week, the Green Bay Packers, who are also great with those deep passes, we're going to get to see kind of what they're made out of.
Yeah, I think the offense is going to be fine and will continue to get better. The defense, the Vita Vea injury on their line is huge. He was off to an all-pro start. He commands double teams. He frees up other guys in that front seven to make plays. He's gone for the season with a leg injury, and you wonder if that's going to cause a very good defense to take a step back.
Yeah, 100%, Dan. I'm with you. That's a huge loss because you can't run against them. It makes them one-dimensional, and then you got Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett just unloading on quarterbacks with their pass rush. You mentioned the secondary last week, Cynthia, and I think we'll see a great test this week. Remember, it's the youngest secondary in the league, but I like those players, and I think you're going to want to see progression as the season moves along, as they mature. And that is something that they're going to get a heavy dose of against Aaron Rodgers this week. And we'll see whether or not they're up for that task.
You'll learn a lot against Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be difficult if you've never seen that kind of speed before.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we got the Panthers, the last of the 3-2 teams.
Well, the Panthers are really interesting because they're kind of this big surprise, and it's really their defense and their ability to, again, stop those big passes that's really making the difference for the Panthers this season. So their defense and what they're able to do in creating like stops on plays where you didn't necessarily think you were going to see a stop, that's what you're going to see. Now, Calvin Ridley, I agree, he had a great game against them when they played, but I'm telling you, it's this defense ability to stop those big plays that's a big factor that could be the difference maker in them making the playoffs. So for me, they're making it about 27% of simulations right now, but that could go up easily with just a few of these kind of small upset wins, especially if they could pull off, a nice strong win against the Chicago Bears this week.
Two guys that jump out to me on offense, Mike Davis, who has filled in for CMC extremely well, and you would think that it gives Matt Rule the option to not have the extreme level of usage that we've seen with McCaffrey in recent years. And also, and I hate to say this as a Jets fan, but Robbie Anderson was an awesome signing by Rule, and he's on pace to set the Panthers record for receiving. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. I wish I didn't bring it up.
I'll add defensive side of the ball. Brian Burns has been a game wrecker. He's been fantastic. It's a young defense, and they got young players making big plays. With Patrick Chin out there as a rookie, Brian Burns, a second-year player. It's been darn impressive. All right, Cynthia, so which one wins the division? Saints, Bucks, Panthers. They're all tied at the top at 3-2.
The Saints win the division, but both the Bucks and the Saints make it to the playoffs.
All right. That
Three
is
teams.
math from
Go to
Cynthia
the
Freeland.
dance.
Thank you, Cynthia. After 5 weeks, those top-off pundits proclaim they know what your favorite team is all about. Well, we say whatever to that. We insist this week's Impact matchup stars 6 squads that are still searching to separate.
I'm Ron Rivera, head coach of the Washington football team. It's real important that we vote because you're picking and choosing the people that will most affect you daily. When you pick the mayor, when you pick the city commissioner, when you do those things, you're picking the people that are going to control the way you live and how you live and what goes on in your community. Voter registration is a priority for me and for the Washington football team because we believe that everybody has a voice and it's important that everybody votes. Have a say in who runs our country. Have a say in who runs our state. Have a say in who runs our city, who runs our communities. Just knowing so many people have worked and committed and fought and died for the right that we have to vote. In today's time, you have an opportunity to impact our world, impact our country, impact our community. And I think it's our right, but it's also our duty to do so.
All right, back with Impact Matchups. Great message there from Coach Rivera. Easy pick here to get us started, Dan, and that is a 4-1 Bears team that we're not sure about and a 3-2 Panthers team that was supposed to be tanking for Trevor and keeping him in the Carolinas. Instead, as predicted on this here show before week 1, Matt Rule is for real. They lost Christian McCaffrey. Mike Davis is picked up, and they have not missed a beat. Brian Burns is a bad man on that defensive side of the ball. And you already mentioned Robbie Anderson has been an elite wide receiver. The Bears last week, a reminder, Khalil Mack's a game wrecker, and that's what that win was. Foles was solid, not spectacular, but Mack mitigated all that meh with just a monster performance. And this is going to be, I think this is probably the most competitive matchup of the week for me.
Yeah, I feel like this is a coin flip game. It's a great choice, and the Bears have been finding ways to win all season long. But Carolina's playing really well right now, as you said, both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Bears at 5-1 could even crack Dan's top 10. Who'd have thunk?
15.
Browns at Steelers. No surprise. Similar story as the Bears. Ask your quarterback not to lose a game for you. Win with defense and a run game. Myles Garrett, we mentioned it. If Aaron Donald would comply, maybe he could win a Defensive Player of the Year, but I doubt it. Baker threw one awful pick to Okereke. His second, while he was hit when he threw it, well, still on him for holding it too long. We know what that Steelers front can do, but you know what? They've given up some points. The Eagles rushed for 6 per carry. They were 3 of 3 in the red zone. And this is the best versus the best. The league's second best rush D, 64 yards per game against the league's best rush offense at 188 yards per game. I'm guessing whichever side wins that battle is likely to win this game.
Yeah. And I think this is going to be a good test to see, like, if I have these teams pegged right, because if I do, the Steelers will take care of business and the Browns will be exposed a little bit. But you're right, the Steelers defense a little bit off so far this season, so the Browns can score points. We've seen that.
Yeah, and they create turnovers. They lead the league in turnovers. 6 picks, 6 forced fumbles. The Steelers, not so much. Only 7 turnovers created. Only 1 single forced fumble that has been recovered. Finally, Cards at Cowboys. We just discussed it in the very last segment about the Cowboys. You take inventory on your injuries game. That's what this is. No Dak for the Cowboys the rest of the season, their best offensive player. No Chandler Jones for the rest of the season for the Cardinals, their best defensive player. It was a get-right game for Kyler Murray. He was sensational against the Jets, but would you expect anything less? And we wonder, if the Cowboys are in command of a terrible NFC East, and we get to see Andy Dalton and whether or not he is destined, as you mentioned, for Dallas greatness with all of that support around him, the most talented supporting cast.
Yeah, the Chandler Jones injury is a killer for the Cardinals, who need all the help they could get on defense. This could be a high-scoring game, but I do really like the Cowboys here and Andy Dalton to ball out and everybody to get on the glowing ginger man train going forward.
How about a couple quick hitters here?
All right.
Ginger train.
Let's do it.
Honest assessments, and that means just a quick bit of inventory on a couple teams. We start with the Dolphins.
It's amazing. Ryan Fitzpatrick, my favorite stat of week 5, he now has more games of 350 yards and 3+ touchdowns than John Elway. And I know it's a different time, but it speaks to the enduring nature of Fitzmagic. And Brian Flores really has a tough situation because they're going to hang around potentially in the playoff race, and you got 2 on the bench. What do you do?
What I will, my honest assessment of the Dolphins is super quick. We heard that it was a split room when it came to selecting their quarterback at number 5. Half the people like Tua, half the people like Herbert. With what Herbert's done the first 4 weeks, you want to talk about pressure. on Tua when he makes his debut after what Justin's done in his first 4 starts. All right, how about the Washington football team?
Dwayne Haskins watching this game from home. Alex Smith gets into the game, and it's just such an amazing comeback story. Just to take a snap, I think he's the comeback player of the year. 2.2 yards per attempt. The Washington offense barely managed 100 yards, but what a great story. Just amazing to see him on the field.
Yeah, see the family in the stands. It really was that kind of warm, fuzzy moment. Get the hair on the back of your neck there to stand up when you see him come in. Awesome, awesome story, perseverance. And speaking of warm and fuzzies, just when you thought your chance had passed, no. Save the best for last. Did your dig at Dan make the cut? The social media authored assault on the old Zoozer. Who is this clown? Is just
you jerk
ahead. And they tagged that Energizer as well. I love it.
You're getting in my pocket, Nate.
Well, we'd love to wrap up our power rankings presented by Energizer with some constructive criticism. That's how we euphemize it. At Dan Hanzus, all due respect, but your power rankings are trash. Green Bay didn't even play, and they move up to number 1.
You know, all due respect in there seemed unnecessary. Hey!
Yeah, how about this? Flip side of that, hey Krista K says, you're my number 1 in power rankings. Hashtag go Pack Go.
That's my sister.
Is that right?
No.
Krista, it's a nice name. All right, let's get some more here, Dan, because we mentioned it earlier. For the people that didn't hear, you had some issues at the top with the Seattle Seahawks, and we got Damian just keeping it nice and simple. This man is a joke.
Again with the Energizer tag. You know what's up with that?
Again, that's right. They're trying to take away our batteries, long-lasting power, and also. We got a lot incoming from the Seattle folks. So, again, a shout-out to them for weighing in and letting you know that a 5-0 team at number 6 is not okay.
I'm not mad at you. You can stand me up at the gates of hell. I won't back down.
Hey, thanks for finding us on a Wednesday. We'll see you next Tuesday.